I want to talk a little bit about how we go about learning to speak English. And I'm talking about probably when we start learning. The first thing that people really need to understand is that if you start trying to study English and you are interested in how to do it correctly, that is to say, how to make your sentences, how to do English grammar correctly, I think the first thing you need to be very clear about in your head is that you don't know how to speak English. I mean, if you knew how to speak English, you would not be studying, right? This kind of makes sense, I guess. But what I find with my students who get started with me is that the first thing that they want to do is to simply show me or show themselves that they know how to do everything. This might be on a translation, or it might be on some improvisation. And basically what they do is they simply repeat what they already know from school. Well, the problem with this is, again, if they really knew what they were doing, they wouldn't need the lessons in the first place. Probably the first thing I learned how to do as a teacher was to show people how to do English. In other words, I don't really teach a bunch of exceptions to the rules or talk abstractly about different types of grammar. I usually show people simply how to do it in English. In other words, how English works. I find this to be a much better method and much quicker way for people to get started and start talking. And what happens is if people work with the idea that they don't know what they're doing and they need to find out, they do things like checking their grammar as they go. They will think about the time of the verb, and they will think about the article, and they will think about the order of words. And if they do this, and this is a little slower at the very beginning, but in the long run it's a little bit better, they end up learning how to do English. Today I had a first lesson with some very intelligent guys, and all through the lesson, instead of paying attention to how to do the grammar or, how the time of the verb is figured, etc., they would immediately shout out their translation. It was a very simple exercise, so they felt, of course, I know how to do this. At the end of the lesson, though, after we had learned how to determine some of the more English variants, they understood that they had made 30 mistakes. It was basically ridiculous how many things they didn't know, even on very simple sentences. So hopefully this will stay with them, and they understand that they need to concentrate only on the English side and not immediately on the translation. And I think if they do that, they will be much more successful and will learn how to do this correctly much more quickly than another student who might simply continue guessing because it's more comfortable or because they just want to test what they know. I guess everyone has to decide for themselves